The notification sound was subtle, just a soft ping, but it shattered my world like a sledgehammer through glass. I wasn't snooping. That's what kills me even now. I wasn't one of those paranoid husbands who checks his wife's phone or tracks her location. After 12 years of marriage to Jessica, I trusted her completely. Which is why, when her iPad lit up on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower, I glanced at it without a second thought. The message preview made my blood run cold. Last night was incredible. Can't stop thinking about you. When can we? The rest was cut off, but I didn't need to see more. My hands were already shaking as I picked up the device. No passcode. We'd never hidden anything from each other. Or so I'd believed. I opened the messaging app, and my entire reality collapsed. Months. There were months of messages, hundreds of them. The man's name was Tyler Brennan, and from what I could piece together in those first horrifying seconds, he was a sales rep for one of the medical supply companies that worked with Jessica's dental practice. The messages were explicit, detailed, and left absolutely nothing to my imagination. They'd been meeting at hotels, in his car. Once, and this detail made bile rise in my throat, in our guest bedroom while I was away at a conference in Boston. That was 3 weeks ago. I'd called her every night from that conference, told her I missed her, told our 2 kids, Emma, age 9, and Sophie, age 6, bedtime stories over FaceTime. And the whole time, she'd been planning her next encounter with this man. My name is David Patterson. I'm 41 years old, a civil engineer for the city of Charlotte, North Carolina. I coach Emma's soccer team. I grill burgers every Sunday. I'm the guy who still opens car doors for his wife and brings her coffee in bed on Saturday mornings. I'm boring, maybe, predictable. But I'd built what I thought was a good life, a stable life. The shower was still running upstairs. I could hear the water through the ceiling, that familiar sound that had been the backdrop of 1,000 ordinary mornings. My wife, washing away evidence of her betrayal while I made breakfast for our children. I took screenshots. My engineering mind kicked into gear even as my heart was breaking. Evidence, documentation. I didn't know what I'd need, but I knew I needed proof. My hands moved mechanically, capturing conversation after conversation. The planning. The lies she'd told me. The lies she'd told her receptionist to cover her absences from the practice. One message stopped me cold. David suspects nothing. He's too wrapped up in work and the kids. Honestly, I think he'd be relieved if I left. We haven't been really us in years. Relieved? I stared at those words until they blurred. I'd been planning our 15th anniversary trip. I'd already put a deposit down on a cabin in the mountains, the same place we'd honeymooned. I had the confirmation email in my inbox from just 2 days ago. "Daddy, I can't find my cleats." Emma's voice jolted me back to reality. She was standing in the doorway, already dressed in her soccer uniform, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail that Jessica had braided the night before. Before she'd gone to book club. Before she'd actually gone to meet Tyler at the Marriott on Providence Road. I knew about the Marriott because I'd read the message where she'd told him which room she'd booked. "Check the garage, sweetheart," I managed, my voice sounding almost normal. "By the recycling bins." She bounded off, full of that uncomplicated energy that 9-year-olds have. She had no idea that her world was about to implode. The water shut off upstairs. I forwarded the screenshots to my personal email, then to a cloud storage account, then deleted the evidence of my forwarding. My hands were steadier now. The initial shock was crystallizing into something else. Something colder. Jessica appeared 10 minutes later, hair damp, wearing the blue dress I'd bought her for her birthday. She smiled at me. That same smile I'd fallen in love with in college, when we'd both been studying at UNC Chapel Hill, and the future had seemed limitless. "Morning, babe," she said, kissing my cheek. Her perfume filled my nostrils, the expensive stuff she saved for special occasions. "You're up early." Couldn't sleep, I said. It wasn't a lie. She poured herself coffee, chattering about her day. She had a crown prep at 9, a root canal at 11, a consultation at 2. Normal conversation, domestic routine. She'd done this for months, I realized. Looked me in the eye and lied with practiced ease. Oh, I might be late tonight, she added casually, stirring cream into her mug. We're doing inventory at the practice. Probably won't be home until 8 or so. There it was. Another lie, delivered as smoothly as a weather report. I wondered if there really was inventory, or if Tyler would be waiting for her somewhere. The messages hadn't mentioned plans for today, but they'd established a pattern. Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. Sometimes Saturdays, when she claimed to be at continuing education seminars. No problem, I heard myself say. I'll handle dinner and homework. She smiled again, grateful, unsuspecting. You're the best. I don't know what I'd do without you. The irony was so thick I could choke on it. Sophie wandered in, dragging her stuffed rabbit, still in pajamas. Jessica scooped her up, covered her face with kisses, the picture of maternal devotion. I watched them and felt something break inside me that I knew would never fully heal. The pharmacy was one of those new corporate places off Pearl Road. All white walls and fluorescent lighting that made everyone look slightly ill. Jessica had asked me to pick up her prescription while she was at work. A simple errand. The kind of thing I'd done 100 times before without thinking twice. That was 3 weeks after I'd found the messages. 3 weeks of sleeping in the guest bedroom under the pretense of a back injury. 3 weeks of watching her lie to our daughters about where she'd been, who she'd seen, what she'd done. 3 weeks of documenting everything while I consulted with my attorney, Gregory Walsh, a divorce specialist who came highly recommended by a colleague whose own marriage had imploded 2 years prior. Just keep gathering evidence, Greg had said during our first meeting. Ohio's a no-fault state, but proof of adultery can still impact spousal support and division of assets. Document everything, but don't tip your hand yet. We need to secure financial records, establish her affair pattern, and make sure we're positioned for maximum custody. So I'd become a ghost in my own life. Present but absent. Watching Jessica kiss our daughters goodnight while texting Tyler about hotel rooms. Listening to her explain late nights at the practice while I tracked her phone to the Hilton Garden Inn in Independence. The pharmacy visit should have been routine. I gave the pharmacist Jessica's name and date of birth. The woman, late 50s, reading glasses on a chain, typed into her computer, then disappeared into the back. When she returned, she had a small white bag and a concerned expression. Mr. Patterson? She glanced at the screen, then at me. I just want to confirm. Your wife still needs the refill on the valacyclovir? The prescription from Dr. Brennan that was started after her consultation in March? The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. I'm sorry, what? She looked uncomfortable now, realizing she'd said something wrong. The antiviral medication for the herpes simplex treatment. It was prescribed by Dr. Brennan on March 15th, and this is her second refill. I just wanted to make sure she's still... Yes, I heard myself say. Yes, she still needs it. My hands were steady as I took the bag. My voice was calm as I thanked her. But inside, something cold and sharp was crystallizing into absolute clarity. March 15th. That was 2 days after Jessica had returned from what she'd called a girls' weekend in Miami with her dental school friends. She'd come back with a slight sunburn and what she'd described as a weird rash that she'd blamed on new laundry detergent at the hotel. I'd suggested she see a doctor. She'd waved me off, said it was clearing up on its own. Dr. Brennan. Tyler Brennan wasn't a medical doctor. He was in medical supply sales. But his father was Dr. Robert Brennan, a dermatologist with a practice in Lakewood. I knew this because I'd done my research on Tyler after finding the messages. Knew where he worked, where he lived, who his family was. Jessica had gone to her lover's father for treatment of a sexually transmitted infection she'd contracted from her lover. The audacity of it made my vision blur. I sat in my car in the pharmacy parking lot, the white bag on the passenger seat, and pulled out my phone. It took me less than 5 minutes to access Jessica's cloud storage. I'd had her passwords for years, one of those married couple conveniences that had now become her undoing. I found the photos from the Miami trip. Jessica and 3 women I recognized from her dental school days, drinks on a beach, sunset selfies, group shots at restaurants, all time-stamped and geotagged. Then I found the photos that weren't in her main album, the ones in a folder labeled Work Docs 2023. Tyler Brennan on a hotel balcony, shirtless, Miami skyline behind him. Jessica in a bathrobe that clearly wasn't hers, champagne glass in hand. The two of them together, his arm around her waist, her head on his shoulder. All time-stamped March 13th and 14th. There had been no girls' weekend. There had been no dental school friends. There had been a romantic getaway with her lover, and she'd come home with herpes. To our bed, to our home, to our daughters. I picked up the prescription bottle and shook it. The pills rattled like tiny bones. The pharmacy bag also contained a printed information sheet about valacyclovir, its uses, its side effects, its dosing schedule. I read it twice, photographed it, then drove to CVS 3 miles away and bought a bottle of white Tic Tacs. The pills were almost identical in size and shape. Close enough. Back home, I worked in the garage with the door closed. I emptied the prescription bottle, counted out 60 pills and placed them in a small plastic bag. Then I filled the prescription bottle with Tic Tacs, exactly 60 of them, and shook it. The rattle was indistinguishable. I put the real pills in a padded envelope along with a printed note. These are valacyclovir pills prescribed to your daughter Jessica on March 15, 2023, by Dr. Robert Brennan for treatment of herpes simplex, contracted during her trip to Miami with Tyler Brennan, March 13, 14. She told her husband she was on a girls' weekend with dental school friends. She told her husband the resulting rash was from hotel laundry detergent. She has been having an affair with Tyler Brennan since January. She has been bringing this infection into the home she shares with her husband and 2 young daughters. I thought you should know what kind of person your daughter has become. I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. Jessica's parents, Donald and Patricia Reeves, lived in Shaker Heights in the same house where Jessica had grown up. They were devout Catholics who'd raised Jessica with strict values about marriage, family, and morality. They adored their granddaughters. They'd given us a substantial cash gift for our wedding and had helped with the down payment on our house. They believed their daughter was perfect. I addressed the envelope in block letters, used cash to buy postage at an automated kiosk, and mailed it from a post office in Westlake, nowhere near our neighborhood. Then I went home and put the Tic Tac-filled prescription bottle back in the white pharmacy bag, exactly as it had been. Jessica came home at 6:30, harried and distracted, kissing the girls and apologizing for being late. She saw the pharmacy bag on the counter and grabbed it without really looking at me. "Thanks for picking this up," she said. "I've been so busy I kept forgetting." "No problem," I said. "The pharmacist asked if you still needed it." I said yes. Something flickered across her face. Uncertainty, maybe concern, but she recovered quickly. "Yeah, it's just preventative. The rash thing from a few months ago. Doctor wanted me to finish the full course." "Makes sense," I said. "Can't be too careful." She smiled at me then, the same smile she'd given me on our wedding day, and took the bag upstairs. I heard the bathroom door close, heard the rattle of pills, heard the tap run. Emma appeared at my elbow, holding her math homework. "Dad, can you help me with these word problems?" "Of course, sweetheart." We sat at the kitchen table, and I helped my daughter calculate how many apples Sally would have if she gave away half of 12 and then received 3 more. Simple arithmetic. Clear problems with definite solutions. Not like real life at all. The envelope would arrive at the Reeves' house in 2 days. I'd timed it carefully. Thursday delivery, when I knew Donald would be home. Patricia always made him sort the mail while she prepared dinner. I didn't know exactly what would happen after that. But I knew the Reeves family well enough to predict the general shape of it. Donald's rage. Patricia's horror. The emergency family meeting. The phone calls. The judgment. Jessica's phone buzzed on the counter. I glanced at it reflexively and saw Tyler's name. Miss you. Tomorrow night? Jessica would take her Tic Tacs religiously, believing she was managing her infection. She'd continue her affair, continue her lies, continue her double life. Until Thursday, until her parents opened an envelope containing evidence of exactly who their daughter had become. Emma tugged on my sleeve. Dad, you're not paying attention. Sorry, baby, let's look at problem 4. I helped my daughter with her homework, while my wife took mints for herpes and planned her next rendezvous with her lover. And I waited. The envelope would arrive Thursday. 3 days. I sat in my home office Wednesday night, the room dark except for the glow of my laptop screen. Jessica was downstairs watching some reality show, her laughter drifting up through the floorboards. The sound made my stomach turn. The tracking number showed the package in transit. Cleveland Distribution Center. Expected delivery between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. tomorrow. Donald Reeves would be home. He worked from his study on Thursdays, had for 20 years, according to Jessica. She'd mentioned it countless times, complaining about how her father's rigid schedule made him impossible to reach during his work hours. He wouldn't answer the door, wouldn't take calls, just him and his files and his unwavering sense of moral superiority. Perfect. My phone buzzed. Gregory Walsh. David, just confirming our Friday meeting. 2 o'clock? I'll be there. And you're certain about moving forward? Once we file, there's no taking it back. I glanced at the bottle of Tic Tacs on my desk, the ones I'd emptied into Jessica's prescription bottle. The real valacyclovir was somewhere over Pennsylvania right now, headed toward Shaker Heights. I'm certain. Good. Bring all your documentation. We'll review everything one final time, then file Monday morning. I've prepared the initial petition. We're asking for primary custody, the house, and a full accounting of marital assets. Given the evidence of adultery and the STI transmission, we're in an excellent position. After he hung up, I pulled up the photographs on my laptop. Not the screenshots of messages. I'd looked at those enough to have them memorized. These were different. Family photos from the past year. Emma's birthday party. Jessica cutting the cake, smiling at our daughter with what looked like genuine love. Sophie's first day of school. Jessica kneeling beside her, adjusting her backpack. Our anniversary dinner last month. Jessica across the table from me at that Italian place on Park Road, her hand covering mine, her eyes warm in the candlelight. 12 years, babe. Here's to 12 more. She'd been sleeping with Tyler for 8 months by then. Had probably been with him that same week, in some hotel room, doing things she'd stopped doing with me years ago. I closed the laptop. Downstairs, Jessica's show ended. I heard her moving around the kitchen, the familiar sounds of her nightly routine. Water running, cabinet doors opening and closing, the soft clink of her taking her medication. The Tic Tacs. She'd been taking them for 4 days now. 4 days of fake treatment while the herpes virus did whatever herpes viruses do when left unchecked. I'd done my research. Without the antiviral medication, her symptoms would likely worsen. The rash would spread. The discomfort would increase. Part of me, the part that still remembered loving her, felt a twinge of guilt. The rest of me remembered her in our guest bedroom with Tyler. Remembered the texts about how boring I was, how predictable, how she needed this because I couldn't give her what she wanted. The guilt evaporated. David? Her voice carried up the stairs. You coming to bed? I checked my watch. 10:47 p.m. In a bit, finishing some work emails. Don't stay up too late. Footsteps on the stairs. The bedroom door closing. The sound of her settling into our bed, probably scrolling through her phone, maybe texting Tyler goodnight. I waited 20 minutes, then crept downstairs. The kitchen was dark. I turned on the small light over the sink, just enough to see. Her purse sat on the counter where she always left it. I'd been through it a dozen times over the past 3 weeks, but tonight I was looking for something specific. There. Her planner. The physical one she kept despite having a digital calendar because she liked writing things down. It helps me remember, she'd always said. I flipped through the pages. Tomorrow, Thursday, was blank except for one notation. Call Mom, 2:30. Patricia Reeves. Who would receive the envelope sometime between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., then would presumably tell her husband. Donald would open it. Read the note. See the prescription bottle with his daughter's name on it. The diagnosis stamped clearly on the label. By 2:30, when Jessica called for their weekly chat, her mother would know everything. I pulled out my phone and set a reminder for 2:45 p.m. tomorrow. I wanted to be somewhere I could watch Jessica's face when she took that call. Friday was marked with lunch, Tyler, 12:30, in her neat handwriting. My jaw clenched. Even now, even while taking what she thought was medication for the disease he'd given her, she was planning to see him, planning to smile and laugh and probably touch his hand across whatever restaurant table they'd chosen. I took a photo of the page, then closed the planner and returned it to her purse. Back upstairs, I paused outside our bedroom door. Through the gap, I could see Jessica's shape under the covers, her phone glowing in her hand. Texting someone. Tyler, probably. I went to the guest bedroom instead. The room where she'd brought him. Where they'd used my house, my space, my life as their playground. Gregory had advised me to stay in the master bedroom to maintain normalcy. Don't tip your hand, he'd said. Everything needs to appear normal until we file. But I couldn't. Not tonight. Not knowing what tomorrow would bring. I lay on top of the covers, fully dressed, and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow at this time, Donald and Patricia Reeves would know their daughter was an adulteress who'd contracted a sexually transmitted infection from her lover. They would know she'd lied about a girls' weekend, had betrayed her marriage vows, had violated everything they'd raised her to believe in. Donald Reeves, who'd given a 20-minute speech at our wedding about the sanctity of marriage, who'd quoted scripture and talked about Jessica as his precious daughter, pure and devoted to God's plan. Patricia Reeves, who still asked Jessica every Sunday if we'd been to Mass, who sent prayer cards for the girls' birthdays, who'd once told me that divorce was a sin against God and family. The envelope would detonate in their world like a bomb. And Jessica had no idea it was coming. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister Lauren in Seattle. Hey, just checking in. You sounded weird last week. Everything okay? I stared at the message. Lauren was the only person besides Gregory who knew. I'd called her 2 weeks ago, late at night, and told her everything. She'd listened in silence, then said, "Whatever you need, I'm here." "Fine," I typed back. "Just tired. Talk soon." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then appeared again. "You're a terrible liar, David, but I trust you know what you're doing." I didn't respond. Did I know what I was doing? I was destroying my children's family, blowing up their world. Emma and Sophie would wake up Friday morning in a house with 2 parents, and by Monday they'd be in a house where Daddy was filing for divorce and Mommy's parents weren't speaking to her. But what was the alternative? Pretend I didn't know? Live with a woman who'd betrayed me in every possible way? Raise my daughters to think that kind of deception was acceptable? No. I thought about Emma at soccer practice last Saturday, running drills while Jessica sat in the bleachers scrolling through her phone. Texting Tyler, probably. Planning their next meeting while our daughter practiced corner kicks. I thought about Sophie asking why mommy's rash wasn't getting better, and Jessica's quick lie. It's just taking longer than the doctor thought, sweetie. Except it wasn't getting better because she wasn't actually taking medication. Because I'd replaced it with candy. Because I'd chosen revenge over mercy. My engineering mind had calculated every angle, every consequence, every potential outcome. The variables were all accounted for. The structure was sound. But lying in that guest bedroom, in the dark, I felt something crack in my chest. Not doubt. I was past doubt. Something else. Something that felt like the last piece of the man I used to be. The trusting husband who'd believed in his wife's goodness, finally breaking off and falling away. Tomorrow, the Reeves family would receive their package. Friday, I would meet with Gregory and finalize everything. Monday, Jessica would be served with divorce papers. And somewhere in between, she would realize that the medication she'd been taking wasn't working, that the rash was spreading, that something was very, very wrong. The tracking number glowed on my phone screen. In transit. Expected delivery. Thursday, 10 a.m., 2 p.m. I set my alarm for 6 a.m. and closed my eyes. The alarm on my phone buzzed at 8:47 a.m. Thursday morning, a reminder I'd set to check the package tracking. I was sitting at my desk at Brennan & Associates, staring at a set of structural calculations that might as well have been written in Sanskrit for all the sense they were making to me. I pulled up the delivery tracking page. The package had left the Cleveland Distribution Center at 6:15 a.m. Current status, out for delivery. Estimated arrival, 10 Mars a.m., 2 NAR p.m. My hands were steady as I closed the browser window. That surprised me. I'd expected some kind of physical reaction, trembling, nausea, the spike of adrenaline I'd felt when I first saw Tyler's messages on Jessica's iPad. Instead, I felt nothing. Just a cold, distant awareness that, in approximately 3 hours, a bomb I'd carefully constructed was going to detonate in Shaker Heights. David, you got a minute? I looked up. Kevin Bradley, the senior partner, stood in my doorway holding a coffee mug with "World's Okayest Engineer" printed on it, a gag gift from last year's Christmas party. Sure, I said. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. That was unusual. Kevin was a leave-the-door-open kind of manager. I wanted to check in, he said, settling into the chair across from my desk. You've seemed off this week. Everything okay at home? The question hit me like a punch I should have seen coming. Kevin had 3 kids of his own, had been married to his wife Linda for 26 years. He'd mentioned once after a few beers at a company barbecue that his oldest daughter had gone through a rough divorce. He understood collateral damage. Just some personal stuff I'm working through, I said. Nothing that affects my work. Kevin took a sip of his coffee, studying me over the rim of the mug. The Henderson project specs you turned in yesterday were solid, but you've been here until 8 or 9 every night this week. That's not like you. Because going home means pretending everything is fine while my wife sleeps peacefully next to me, blissfully unaware that her entire life is about to implode. I'll be back to normal soon, I said. I've got some things to finalize and then it'll be behind me. Kevin nodded slowly. If you need time off, just say the word. We can shuffle the workload. I appreciate that, really. He stood, paused at the door. Linda always says the worst part of a crisis is the waiting. Once you're through it, at least you know what you're dealing with. After he left, I sat there thinking about that. The waiting. I'd been waiting for 3 weeks now. Waiting while I documented evidence. Waiting while I consulted with Gregory Walsh. Waiting while I replaced Jessica's medication with candy and mailed the real pills to her parents. Waiting while she kissed me goodbye every morning and told me she loved me. The waiting was almost over. At 11:30, I went to the break room and made myself eat a sandwich I'd brought from home. Turkey and Swiss on wheat bread. Jessica had made it for me this morning, standing at the kitchen counter in her robe, humming something under her breath. She'd packed it in a plastic container with an apple and a granola bar, the same lunch she'd been making me for 12 years. I wondered if she'd packed Tyler's lunches too, during their Miami getaway. If she'd hummed the same tune while spreading mayonnaise on his bread. The sandwich tasted like cardboard, but I forced it down anyway. I needed to eat. Needed to maintain the appearance of normalcy. My phone buzzed at 1:47 p.m. Package delivered. Signed for by P. Reeves. Patricia. Jessica's mother had signed for it. I imagined her opening the padded envelope, expecting maybe a late birthday gift or some Amazon purchase. Instead, finding the amber prescription bottle with Jessica's name printed on the label, the pharmacy information from Cleveland clearly visible. The pills inside rattling when she picked it up. And the note. Typed on plain white paper, no signature, no return address. Your daughter contracted genital herpes from her boyfriend Tyler Brennan during their romantic weekend in Miami last month. The girls' trip she told you about. These are her antiviral medications. She's been lying to her husband and children while conducting this affair for at least 6 months. The prescription was written by Tyler's father, Dr. Robert Brennan. You might want to ask her about the guest bedroom incident while her husband was in Boston. Short, clinical, devastating. I debated including the guest bedroom detail. It was cruel, forcing her parents to picture their daughter having sex with another man in her own home, in a bed where her children probably jumped and played. But cruelty was the point. I wanted them to understand exactly who their daughter had become. Jessica was scheduled to call her mother at 2:30 p.m., like she did every Thursday afternoon. Regular as clockwork. They'd talk about the girls, about Jessica's dental practice, about whatever church fundraiser Patricia was organizing. Normal mother-daughter conversation. Except today, Patricia would have had 43 minutes to open the package, read the note, and process what it meant. I wondered if she'd tell Donald immediately, or if she'd wait until after Jessica called. I wondered if she'd confront Jessica directly, or if she'd simply stop answering her calls. The Reeves family had always been big on appearances. Patricia served on 3 church committees. Donald was a deacon. They'd hosted Jessica's dental school graduation party at their country club, invited half of Shaker Heights to celebrate their daughter's success. This would destroy them almost as much as it destroyed Jessica. That should have bothered me more than it did. At 2:45 p.m., my phone rang. Jessica. I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, a text. Can you talk? Something's wrong with my mom. I stared at that message for a long time. Something's wrong with my mom. Not, my mom is acting weird, or my mom seemed upset. Something's wrong. Like Patricia had become a different person in the span of a single phone call. Another text. She won't tell me what's going on. Just kept asking me questions about Miami and then hung up on me. David, I'm worried. The concern in that message would have been touching if I didn't know she was a practiced liar. Jessica had spent 6 months perfecting the art of deception. Fake girls' trips, late nights at the office, the careful compartmentalization of her double life. Now that same skill was working against her, making her mother's sudden coldness inexplicable. She didn't know yet. Didn't understand that Patricia had opened a package containing physical evidence of her betrayal. Didn't realize her mother was probably sitting in the Shaker Heights house right now, showing Donald the prescription bottle, the note, watching her father's face turn purple with rage. I typed back, in a meeting. We'll call you later. 3 dots appeared immediately. Disappeared. Appeared again. Okay, love you? I put the phone face down on my desk and went back to the structural calculations I'd been pretending to work on all morning. At 4:15, another call from Jessica. I ignored it. At 4:47, a text. My dad just called. They want me to come to Cleveland this weekend, without you and the girls. David, something is really wrong. They won't tell me what. There it was, the summons. Donald and Patricia weren't the type to handle this over the phone. They'd want Jessica in front of them, where they could see her face when they confronted her, where she couldn't hide behind carefully crafted text messages or the distance of a phone line. I wondered if they'd show her the pills first or the note, if they'd give her a chance to explain, or if Donald would simply tell her she was no longer welcome in their home. Patricia had 3 sisters, all devout Catholics like her, all married to their high school or college sweethearts, all still together after 30-plus years. Jessica had been the golden child, the one who'd gone to dental school, who'd married a nice stable engineer, who'd given them 2 beautiful granddaughters. Now she was the daughter who'd cheated on her husband and contracted a sexually transmitted infection from her boyfriend. The Reeves family didn't do scandal. They did respectability, tradition, appearances. Jessica had just blown all of that apart. My phone rang again at 5:30. Jessica, 3rd time. I was in my car by then, sitting in the parking garage, watching the sun slant through the concrete pillars. This time I answered. David, thank God. Her voice was tight, stressed. My parents are freaking out about something and won't tell me what. They want me to drive up to Cleveland tomorrow, just me. They specifically said not to bring you or the girls. Did they say why? No. My mom just kept saying we need to have a serious family discussion. I asked if someone was sick and she said no. I asked if something happened and she said we'd talk about it in person. A pause. David, I'm scared. What if something's really wrong? The concern in her voice was genuine. That was the thing about Jessica. She could lie about where she'd been and who she'd been with, could maintain a months-long affair while playing devoted wife and mother. But she genuinely loved her parents. Genuinely couldn't stand the thought of them being hurt or upset. The irony was so thick I could taste it. Maybe you should go, I said, if they need to talk to you about something important. But the girls, I'll watch them, it's fine. Silence on her end. Then, you're sure? Yeah, if your parents need you, you should be there. Okay. She exhaled. Okay. I'll leave first thing tomorrow morning. Should be there by early afternoon. Just in time for them to destroy her. The Friday morning light filtered through the kitchen blinds as I made pancakes for Emma and Sophie. Jessica had barely slept, tossing and turning beside me in our bed. She'd finally returned there after the phone call with her mother, seeking comfort I provided with mechanical precision. I'd held her, stroked her hair, murmured reassurances while she trembled against me, terrified of whatever awaited her in Cleveland. Why can't we go to Grandma and Grandpa's too? Sophie asked, drowning her pancakes in syrup. It's just boring grown-up stuff, sweetie, Jessica said, her voice thin. She'd applied extra makeup this morning, trying to hide the dark circles under her eyes. I'll be back Sunday night. But you never go without us, Emma said, cutting her pancakes into precise squares the way I'd taught her. Jessica's hand shook slightly as she lifted her coffee mug. Sometimes parents need to talk about adult things. I flipped another pancake, keeping my back to them. Your mom's right. Besides, we'll have fun this weekend. I was thinking we could go to that new trampoline park. Emma's face lit up. Really? Really? And maybe get ice cream after. Jessica shot me a grateful look. She had no idea I was celebrating. Her flight left at 11. I drove her to the airport, helped her with her bag at the curb. She clung to me for a long moment, her expensive perfume failing to mask the scent of fear sweat. I don't understand what this is about, she whispered against my shoulder. Mom sounded so cold. I'm sure it's nothing, I lied smoothly. Maybe they're having marriage problems and want to talk to you about it. She pulled back, eyes searching mine. You really think so? What else could it be? I kissed her forehead. Call me when you land. I watched her walk through the automatic doors, pulling her suitcase behind her, shoulders tight with anxiety. Then I drove home and called Gregory Walsh. She's on the plane, I said. Good. That gives us time to prepare. You're still coming in at 2? Wouldn't miss it. I spent the morning being the father my daughters deserved. We played in the backyard, kicked the soccer ball around, made elaborate stories with Sophie's stuffed animals. Normal, present. Everything Jessica had risked and lost. My phone buzzed at 1:47 p.m. as I pulled into the parking lot of Walsh's office building. Landed. Mom and Dad picked me up. They won't even look at me. David, I'm scared. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed, I'm sure you'll work it out. Love you. The lie tasted like ashes. Gregory's office occupied the 15th floor of a glass tower in uptown Charlotte. His paralegal, a efficient woman named Rachel, offered me coffee I didn't want and ushered me into a conference room where Gregory had spread documents across a mahogany table. How are you holding up? He asked. Fine. I sat down, scanning the papers. What am I looking at? Your divorce petition. I've outlined our strategy for primary custody, the asset division, everything we discussed. He slid a document toward me. This is the timeline we'll present to the judge. The affair, the deception, the health risks she exposed you to without your knowledge or consent. I read through it, my engineering mind appreciating the logical progression of facts. Date of first discovered message. Date of last confirmed encounter. Date of prescription pickup. Each piece of evidence cataloged and cross-referenced. The medical aspect is particularly damning, Gregory continued. She contracted a sexually transmitted infection through infidelity, sought treatment secretly, and continued to have intimate relations with you without disclosure. That's not just betrayal. In some contexts, it could constitute assault. My jaw tightened. I hadn't thought of it that way. We'll file Monday morning at 9, he said. She'll be served either Monday afternoon or Tuesday, depending on when she returns from Cleveland. I'm assuming her parents' reaction won't be favorable? Her father's a deacon at their church. Her mother runs the women's Bible study group. I leaned back in my chair. They raised Jessica with very specific ideas about morality, marriage, and family values. Then she's walking into a firestorm with no warning. Gregory's expression remained neutral, but I caught a flicker of something. Approval, maybe, or professional satisfaction. By the time she's served with divorce papers, her support system will already be compromised. That's the idea. He walked me through the custody arguments. Jessica's deception, the health risks, the fact that she'd brought her lover into our home, into the bed where our children sometimes crawled in for comfort after nightmares. The judge would see a pattern of prioritizing her affair over her family's well-being. What are my chances? I asked. For primary custody? Strong. North Carolina allows fault-based divorce, and infidelity is explicitly recognized. Combined with the health risks and deception, you present as the stable parent. He paused. The asset division will be more complex. You're both professionals with comparable incomes. The house is jointly owned. But given the circumstances, I'm confident we can negotiate a favorable settlement. My phone buzzed again. I glanced at it. They know. I don't understand how, but they know. About Tyler. About everything. David, please call me. I silenced the phone and looked back at Gregory. What else do I need to sign? We spent another hour on paperwork. Financial disclosures, custody schedules, temporary support arrangements. Each signature felt like closing a door that had been hanging open for months, letting in cold wind and lies. One more thing, Gregory said as I prepared to leave. Are you prepared for her to contest this? To fight back? With what? The evidence is ironclad. Evidence of the affair, yes. But she might claim the medication switch was cruel, vindictive. That sending those pills to her parents was psychological warfare. I met his eyes. I switched some mints. I mailed her prescription to her parents' address. Maybe I thought she'd need it while visiting them. How was I supposed to know what was in the bottle? I was just being helpful. A slight smile touched Gregory's lips. Plausible deniability. Good. Maintain that position if questioned. He stood, extending his hand. I'll see you Monday morning. Bring the flash drive with all the screenshots. We'll file at 9 sharp. I shook his hand and left, taking the elevator down to the parking garage where the afternoon sun slanted through concrete pillars. My phone had buzzed 4 more times during the elevator ride. Please answer. I need to talk to you. My parents won't speak to me. They just keep crying and praying. Dad called me a disgrace to the family. David, please. I don't know what to do. I sat in my car, engine off, reading through the messages. Part of me, the part that had loved her for 12 years, that had built a life with her, wanted to call, to comfort, to fix. But that part was dying, strangled by the screenshots on my computer, the prescription bottle I'd photographed, the memory of her lying to my face about a rash while another man's disease incubated in her body. I typed, I'm in a meeting, we'll call later. Then I drove to pick up Emma and Sophie from my sister's house, where they'd spent the afternoon. They tumbled into the car full of stories about playing with their cousins, arguing over who got to sit in the front seat tomorrow, completely oblivious to the earthquake cracking the foundation of their world. Can we still go to the trampoline park? Emma asked. Absolutely. Right now if you want. We spent 3 hours jumping, laughing, being normal. I bought them ice cream after. Chocolate chip for Emma, strawberry for Sophie. We sat at a picnic table outside the shop as the sun began its descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Is Mom okay? Emma asked suddenly, licking ice cream from her spoon. My stomach clenched. What do you mean? She seemed sad this morning, and she's been weird lately. Emma's dark eyes, Jessica's eyes, studied me with uncomfortable perception. Are you guys fighting? Sometimes grown-ups have things to work through, I said carefully. But you don't need to worry about it, okay? Your mom and I both love you very much. It was true. Whatever happened between Jessica and me, whatever wreckage lay ahead, that remained constant. I loved my daughters, and I would protect them from the fallout of their mother's choices. My phone buzzed again as we drove home in the twilight. I waited until the girls were inside, occupied with a movie, before I read it. My parents disowned me. They said I'm not their daughter anymore. They said I'm going to hell. David, I have nowhere to go. I'm at the airport. I'm coming home. I stared at the message, then at the clock. Her flight would land around 10:30. She'd be home by 11:15, assuming she could get a last-minute ticket. Monday morning, she'd be served with divorce papers. I typed back, I'm here. We'll talk when you get home. Then I went inside to tuck my daughters into bed, reading them stories about princesses and happy endings, while their mother flew home to a kingdom that no longer existed. The weekend stretched out like a minefield. Jessica moved through the house like a ghost, her phone clutched in her hand, checking it obsessively. Saturday morning, she didn't come down for breakfast. I made pancakes for the girls, flipping them with mechanical precision while Emma chattered about her upcoming game. Is Mom sick? Sophie asked, pushing her pancake around her plate. She's just tired from her trip, sweetheart. Jessica finally appeared around noon, still in her bathrobe, her eyes red-rimmed. She'd been crying again. I felt nothing watching her suffer, just a cold, clinical satisfaction that my plan was working exactly as intended. I need to talk to you, she said quietly, glancing toward the living room where the girls were watching television. My pulse quickened, but I kept my expression neutral. Okay. We went into the kitchen. She leaned against the counter, her arms wrapped around herself. The confident, polished woman I'd married had been replaced by this hollow shell. Good. My parents, they've cut me off completely. They won't even take my calls. Her voice cracked. Someone sent them. She stopped, swallowing hard. Someone sent them information about a medical issue I've been dealing with. I raised my eyebrows, playing concerned husband. What kind of medical issue? It doesn't matter. What matters is that someone violated my privacy. Someone went through my medical records, or I don't know how they got the information. She looked at me with desperate eyes. David, I need you to know that whatever they told my parents, it's not what it looks like. The audacity of it almost made me laugh. Even now, caught and exposed, she was still trying to spin the narrative. What does it look like? I asked carefully. She shook her head. I can't talk about it right now. But my parents think I've done something unforgivable, and they won't even listen to my side. A tear slid down her cheek. I just need you to know that I haven't done anything to hurt this family. I would never do that. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. This woman who'd shared my bed for 12 years, who'd given me 2 beautiful daughters who I'd trusted with every part of myself. She was lying to my face without a trace of remorse, only self-pity. Okay, I said simply. She blinked. Okay? I believe you. The lie tasted like ash, but I delivered it perfectly. Whatever your parents think happened, I know you wouldn't hurt us. Relief flooded her face. She stepped forward and hugged me, pressing her face against my chest. I felt her body shake with sobs. I put my arms around her mechanically, staring at the wall over her shoulder. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for believing in me. I patted her back, thinking about Monday, about Gregory Walsh's office, about the moment she'd realized that I knew everything, had known for weeks, and had been systematically destroying her life while she thought I was her safe harbor. That night, she took her medication in front of me. I watched her shake 2 Tic Tacs from the bottle and swallow them with water, completely oblivious. The rash on her collarbone was still visible above her nightgown, angrier now, spreading slightly. Valacyclovir typically worked within a few days. Without it, the outbreak would continue, possibly worsen. Part of me, the part that had loved her, felt a twinge of guilt. But then I remembered Tyler's messages. Your husband has no idea what he's missing while he's playing house. I remembered them in my bed, in my guest room. I remembered her lies, her casual deception, her complete disregard for our vows. The guilt evaporated. Sunday morning, she was on her laptop at the kitchen table, typing furiously. I glanced over her shoulder while refilling my coffee. What are you working on? She minimized the window quickly. Just trying to draft an email to my parents, trying to explain. I'm sure they'll come around, I said. They love you. I don't know. Her voice was small. My mother said things. She called me things I've never heard her say before. She said I was dead to them, that they'd raised me better than this. I sipped my coffee. That seems extreme. What exactly did they tell you they received? Jessica's fingers tightened on her laptop. Medication. Someone sent them my medication with a note about where I supposedly got the condition it treats. It's all lies, David. Vicious lies from someone who wants to destroy me. Who would do that? I don't know. She slammed the laptop shut. Maybe someone from the practice. Maybe a patient with a grudge. Maybe... She stopped, her eyes widening slightly. Maybe Tyler. My hand froze halfway to my mouth. Tyler. Tyler Brennan, the medical supply rep who comes by the office. She was talking faster now, building her own narrative. He's been inappropriate with me, making comments. I've tried to keep things professional, but maybe he got angry that I rejected him and decided to... You think he sent medication to your parents? I kept my voice level, curious. It makes sense, doesn't it? He'd have access to medical supplies. He knows my family situation because we've talked about... She trailed off, realizing she was revealing too much. He knows things about me. Personal things. Maybe he twisted them into something ugly. I set down my coffee mug with careful precision. Have you reported this inappropriate behavior to anyone? No, I didn't want to make waves. He's one of our main suppliers. She looked at me pleadingly. But now I think I should. If he's stalking me, sending things to my family? Stalking you? The word hung in the air between us. What else would you call it? She was gaining confidence now, warming to her story. He's been pursuing me for months. I've tried to be polite, professional, but he won't take no for an answer. And now this? Sending intimate medical information to my parents? That's harassment. That's quite an accusation, I said quietly. She met my eyes. I know, but I think it's time I stop being quiet about it. For our family's sake. For our daughter's sake. She reached across the table and took my hand. I should have told you sooner. I just didn't want to worry you. I looked down at her hand on mine. Her wedding ring caught the light. The same ring I'd saved for 6 months to buy. The same ring she'd been wearing when she sent Tyler photos of herself in lingerie. When she'd met him in hotel rooms. When she'd brought him into our home. You should definitely report it, I said. Tomorrow, maybe. First thing. Yes, she squeezed my hand. Tomorrow. I'll make it right. Tomorrow. When Gregory Walsh's process server would be waiting outside her dental practice with divorce papers. When she'd learned that her devoted husband had documentation of every message, every lie, every betrayal. When she'd realized that the medication switch, her parents' disownment, all of it, had been orchestrated by the man she thought was too boring, too trusting, too stupid to ever catch on. I squeezed her hand back. I'm sure everything will work out exactly as it should. That night, I lay awake while she slept beside me. Her breathing was steady, peaceful. The sleep of someone who thought they'd successfully deflected disaster, who thought they'd turned their victim into their ally. My phone buzzed silently on the nightstand. A text from Gregory Walsh. Server confirmed for 9 a.m. outside her practice. Everything's in order. Call me after. I deleted the message and set the phone down. Beside me, Jessica stirred, turning toward me in her sleep. Her hand found mine under the covers, fingers intertwining automatically. A gesture from years of marriage, muscle memory of intimacy that no longer existed. I didn't pull away. There was no point. In less than 12 hours, this charade would be over. I closed my eyes and waited for morning. The Monday morning sun cut through my office window as I stared at the email from Gregory Walsh. Subject line, served, 9:47 a.m. Jessica had been handed the divorce papers outside her dental practice, just as she was unlocking the front door. The process server said she'd stood there for a full minute, reading the first page, before her legs gave out. She'd sat down right there on the concrete steps, the papers scattered around her like fallen leaves. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt tired. My phone had been ringing since 10:15. 17 missed calls from Jessica. 12 voicemails I hadn't listened to. Text messages that started with confusion. What is this? There must be a mistake. Moved through denial. This isn't real. Someone's playing a sick joke. And finally landed on rage. You knew. You've known this whole time and you played me. Yes. I had. Emma appeared in my office doorway at home that evening. I'd started working remotely after the serving. She was holding her soccer ball, her face serious, in that way 9-year-olds get when they're trying to understand adult problems. Mom's not coming home tonight, is she? I set down my coffee. No, sweetheart, she's not. Is it because of the divorce? The word sounded too big coming from her mouth. I wanted to ask who'd told her, but it didn't matter. Kids always knew. They sensed the fractures before the foundation crumbled. Yes. Did she do something bad? I thought about how to answer that. about the screenshots on my computer, the prescription bottle, the months of lies. About revenge that had felt righteous in the planning, but tasted like poison in the execution. She made choices that hurt our family, I said carefully. And now, we have to figure out how to move forward. Are you going to make her go away forever? No, she's still your mom. You and Sophie will still see her. We're not going to be married anymore. Emma nodded slowly, processing. Then, Grandma Reeves called. She was crying. She said Mom broke God's rules. My jaw tightened. Patricia had called my 9-year-old daughter to condemn her own child. The collateral damage kept spreading, ripples from a stone I'd thrown with calculated precision. That's between your mom and your grandmother, I said. It's not your burden to carry. She looked at me with eyes too old for her face. Did you break any rules, Dad? The question hit me like a physical blow. Had I? Technically, no. I'd documented evidence of adultery. I'd mailed medication to its rightful owner's family. I'd protected my children from a mother who'd brought disease into our home. Everything defensible. Everything justified. But I'd also replaced her medication with candy, knowing she'd continue to suffer. I'd orchestrated her parents' discovery for maximum devastation. I'd let her comfort herself with lies while I systematically destroyed her life. I'd chosen cruelty over mercy, revenge over reconciliation. I did what I thought I had to do, I said finally. I'm not sure if that makes it right. Emma set down her soccer ball and climbed into my lap, something she hadn't done in over a year. She was getting too big for it, all long limbs and sharp elbows, but I wrapped my arms around her anyway. I don't want you and Mom to hate each other, she whispered. I don't hate her, Em. I promise. It was true. Somewhere in the wreckage of the past month, the white-hot rage had burned itself out. What remained wasn't hatred. It was grief for what we'd lost, what we'd never actually had, what our daughters would grow up without. The custody hearing was set for 6 weeks out. Gregory was confident we'd get primary placement. Jessica's affair, combined with the health risks and deception, painted a clear picture. Her attorney had already reached out about settlement negotiations. She wanted to avoid a trial, wanted to keep the details private. Too late for that. Her parents had made sure their church community knew. Jessica had been asked to step down from the Women's Auxiliary Committee. The whispers had started at Emma's school, other mothers giving me sympathetic looks while their daughters asked Emma pointed questions about why her mommy didn't live at home anymore. Tyler Brennan had disappeared from the narrative entirely. His medical supply company had quietly reassigned him to a different territory. Coward. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I sat in the house that was now solely mine. Jessica had taken a cash settlement rather than fight for half. The girls were with her for the weekend, their first overnight visit at her new apartment in Dilworth. The place felt too quiet without them. Too empty. I pulled up the screenshots on my computer, the ones that had started everything. Tyler's messages, Jessica's responses, the evidence I'd used to methodically dismantle her life. Then I deleted them. All of them. The cloud backups, the external drive copies, everything. Gregory had advised keeping them indefinitely. You never know when you might need leverage, he'd said. But I didn't want leverage anymore. I didn't want to be the man who kept receipts of his ex-wife's worst moments, who held her betrayal like a weapon. I wanted to be the father my daughters needed. The man who could look them in the eye and say he'd done his best, even when his best was flawed and messy and sometimes cruel. The truth is, there are no winners in stories like this. Jessica lost her marriage, her parents, her reputation. I lost my faith in love, my family's wholeness, my daughter's innocence. Emma and Sophie lost the security of an intact home, lost the belief that their parents were infallible. Tyler lost nothing, because men like him never do. And all of us, every single one of us, would carry the scars of what happened. The choices made, the revenge taken, the trust shattered beyond repair. People ask me sometimes if I regret it. If I wish I'd confronted Jessica directly, tried counseling, given her a chance to explain. If the elaborate revenge was worth it. I don't know. I know my daughters are safe. I know the truth came out. I know Jessica can't hurt me anymore, but I also know that in destroying her, I destroyed something in myself. The part that believed in mercy, the part that could forgive, the part that understood that we're all capable of terrible things when we're desperate or selfish or broken. I became the kind of man who switches medication out of spite, who weaponizes a mother's love against her daughter, who watches someone suffer and feels satisfaction instead of compassion. Maybe she deserved it. Maybe she didn't. Maybe the real answer is that revenge doesn't operate on a scale of deserving. It just consumes everything in its path until there's nothing left but ash and regret. Late at night, when the house is silent and the girls are asleep in their rooms, I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I'd made different choices. If I'd confronted her that first morning? If I'd simply filed for divorce without the elaborate theater of destruction? Would we have found a way to co-parent with dignity? Would her parents still speak to her? Would Emma still look at me like I'm her hero instead of someone who might be capable of cruelty? I'll never know. What I do know is this. Trust, once broken, doesn't heal cleanly. Love, once betrayed, doesn't resurrect. And revenge, no matter how justified it feels in the moment, doesn't actually make you whole again. It just makes you someone who's capable of revenge. I'm still David Patterson, still a civil engineer, still a soccer coach, still a father who makes pancakes on Saturday mornings. But I'm also the man who looked at his wife suffering and felt nothing, who planned her destruction with the same precision I used to design bridges and buildings. The girls are adjusting. Jessica is rebuilding. Her parents may never forgive her, but she's found a new church, started therapy, begun the slow work of becoming someone her daughters can respect again. And me? I'm learning to live with what I've done. Learning that justice and revenge aren't the same thing, even when they wear the same face. Learning that protecting your children sometimes means protecting them from your own worst impulses. The screenshot that changed everything is gone now, deleted into digital oblivion. But the memory remains. The choice remains. The consequences remain. And I remain. Not triumphant, not vindicated, just a man trying to figure out how to be good again after proving he could be ruthless. Maybe that's the real lesson here. We're all capable of both. The question isn't whether we can hurt the people who hurt us. The question is whether we should. Whether the satisfaction of revenge is worth the cost of our own humanity. I thought I knew the answer when I replaced those pills, when I mailed that package, when I watched Jessica's world burn. Now, sitting in this too quiet house with my daughter's laughter echoing from memory, I'm not so sure. But I do know this. The next time Emma asks me if I broke any rules, I'll tell her the truth. Yes, I did. And I'm still learning what that means.